back, it's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to draw a gray catbird. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so this is the gray catbird. They're gray. They're gray with a bit of black on their head and some black on their tail, but otherwise they're mostly gray. So I'm going to do the whole thing in shadow with both the light gray and the dark gray. And when I'm talking about shadow, right, like it's just this very light pin pressure. And I go in the direction I think the feathers would already be going. Right, so any direction changes and things like that, I reflect that in the brush strokes, right? And you just sort of fully fill it in. Just being mindful, you know, around eyes in particular. Eyes are something that we notice. And so just being careful not to, you know, mess up the eyes, especially because for the most part, feathers won't be dipping down into the eye. So making sure that stays a little cleaner than other spots. Right, because if we go off the edge of the drawing down here where there's no eye or anything, it doesn't matter. Because realistically, that would happen with fur and with feathers. Now, I mentioned this is light pin pressure, so as an example, right, this is full pin pressure. You can see the difference. So just keeping this very, very sort of backed off, I'm going to fill in the whole thing with both the light and the dark gray, and I will be right back. Now I'm going to add in the highlights now that this is all done, and I've kind of already sketched out where the shadows would be. Right, so I have the light source kind of coming from above and to the right. So, you know, under the beak here, under the chin, under the belly, the inside of the wing on this side, the bottom here, the back of his head, down the legs a little bit, all of that's going to be in shadow. Based on that light source being above and to the right, above and in front of to the right. So, you know, I'm then just going to come in here and add both more lines and more pin pressure, and both of that's going to brighten this up pretty quickly. And having it brighten up like that will really help the areas that are dark stand out more than they are right now, because they're very blended right now, and some of that's just because of the nature of you know, when you're using gray as black, it's helpful to have a reference point of another brighter color to indicate that it's black. So brightening up this gray will really show that the others are much darker. And not only, like I said, not only do you have to use more pin pressure, but more lines can also fill it in. Again, being careful by the eye. And sometimes winging it a little bit, adding extra shadows in places. When I say adding shadows, I just mean not adding highlights. Because we've already shadowed it, right? So by not adding any more to it, it's already in shadow. And I'm just following the lines I've already drawn, right? So I'm mindful to stay with the lines I've already drawn. That helps it give that illusion, the fur going in that direction, or feathers in this case. So as we work ourselves down, that's probably a little too much. Near an area that's going to have shadow, instead of more pin pressure, I do just want to make sure I'm doing more lines. That'll help blend it instead of a hard cutoff from a thicker line. I'll just make it a little easier. And then if I take off my shadow layer here, right, that's kind of how it looks at the moment. So I still want to blend this in because it's not quite blended nicely. I'm going to do that just very carefully, adding in just a few more lines so that it blends. Very, very light pin pressure to do that. Right, and then we have kind of a more blended look. And so I'll do that. I'll add in the this lighter gray. I'm going to do that whole thing, add in the highlights, and I will be right back. All right, so now we're just going to get in. So I just have to be careful when you're doing something like this with a darker color trying to imitate black, because if you brighten it up too much, you know, it loses kind of that look. But I also need to give it a little bump to indicate, you know, highlights, shadows, and partly, you know, that'll help with like right now it just kind of looks like it's a shadow, but by brightening up just a little bit of it and showing clear shadows and highlights, it'll start looking like it's or at least the hope, right? It should. But if you brighten it up too much, right, you see there, you kind of lose the look of it. I might have to darken this up. I'm gonna see. Choose a darker color. I try to always choose a mid-tone gray so that it shows up, especially on like a shirt if you're printing it, because that can be a tricky thing. But it's not always so straightforward. A lot of factors that change what I might have to do. And then the nails also being a darker black. Not perfect, but they don't need to be. Okay, so I've chosen, yeah, see, that's already a dark color. I'm gonna go a little darker, or just take it off. Definitely see it better when it's off. We might just skip. Okay, so what I am gonna do, go back to this gray, and I'm gonna select a nice bright color here. I guess that's what we're gonna do. And I'm just going to draw in areas where the highlight would be a little bit more extreme. And what I'm trying to do is just create a burst of highlight where the light source would be hitting. So it's not everywhere in the bright, just kind of in select spots. and pushing into even other colors. If I do it right, it won't look like that's the color for the bird. It'll just kind of look like a highlight. Which is kind of what I want it to do, to look like a highlight. So then what we're going to do is come in here and select a blue. A nice solid like skyish blue, a little darker than sky blue. Now this might be a little too intense for the highlight up here. I might have to redo that, but for right now, what we're going to do with the blue is draw this in anywhere that there are shadows, and this needs to be very light pin pressure. Otherwise, it starts looking wonky. Right, it'll start looking like it's a highlight, and we really want it to appear as a shadow. Just very light, where all the shadows would be. Yeah. Oh, my voice. Yeah, I think that works. Again, the only thing I'm just not certain about is how bright this layer up here is. I don't think it's horrible. I just think it's a little overzealous. So I'm just going to come in and redo it, actually. That's probably the smartest thing to do. Alright. Changes a lot when you take that away. Definitely needs it. Right, so I'm going to do this again. So again, very light. I was just a little too much, I think. Just drowning out that section on the bird. I think that's much more backed off pin pressure for the highlight, because you don't need much to indicate it's a highlight. And you see how much that does for it. It adds really a nice pop of color, as does the blue. You get the sense of the shadows there, even though the blue is a brighter color. Oopsies. Okay, so I'm going to draw in a highlight for the eye. Sometimes I draw in the actual eye. Sometimes for birds, especially when small birds like this, I don't always need to, so I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to take, kind of imitate trees. It's kind of what you want there. You can have a few coming up. Another one coming up. Where they're different kind of angles. Because in the reflection you would get, you know, potentially a lot. I do think that works, actually. Well, there we go. A gray catbird. Alright, so that's how you draw a gray catbird. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.